Saab. Khan Saab, if I may ask you this question, that importance of SCO summit, especially in the prevailing conditions, not only internally, but sir, the external issues like climate change, food security, energy security, supply chain and all. Your take, sir.
Within the charter of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And Shanghai Cooperation Organization, let's examine it from 3 points, 3 angles. One is it's the formation, the legal framework under which it has been formed. And the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is formed under the UN Charter, Chapter 8, and that is basically give the strength to all the regional arrangements or regional organizations. So that is one. And coming straight from the charter point, Article 3, what you were discussing and what in the documentary, what your production team had put together, and your own intro, the climate change and plus the kind of devastation which we had during the flood. Article 3 elaborates that point for the member states of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And in Article 3, besides other things, they have also mentioned about the natural disaster and man-made disaster, particularly mitigating the impact of it. So what you were mentioning about $40 billion, the impact on no fault of their own, it's just less than 1% carbon emission. And I will quote here the Secretary General of the United Nations, who had said that the nature is striking back, but at a wrong target. Pakistan, with this little emission, which is negligible, is being targeted by the nature, and the entire world should help them out. That's what the United Nations and Shanghai Cooperation Organization has an embedded feature in its Article number 3, and I could very safely assume that this would be one of the discussion point by our Prime Minister, quoting this article of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, what I just mentioned. And these, besides this particular very cardinal point, there are other points which would be under discussion, it appears, as it was in the previous head of the state summits, and that is basically anti-terrorist, the structure, regional cooperation, connectivity, science, technology, culture, education. So all those things are just, but basically why it has become so significant this time is the importance of this summit is that after the 2019, this is the first face-to-face meeting, one under the shadow of Ukraine-Russia conflict, and where China has its own standpoint and India has its own standpoint. Right? China has not yet really condemned the invasion, but has shown its solidarity with the Russians. So under that shadow, and under the shadow that the China-India recent conflict of line of actual control, and Pakistan, India, Kashmir, the aggression on the Kashmiris. So all these combines together, what United Nations Charter says in its Chapter 8, that the regional, this time it is going to happen. But again, it's significant in view of the geopolitical landscape of the world, and particularly in this region, where the Russian presidency issued a statement yesterday that the SCO has to really find its direction towards coming out of the influence of the West. So, and the words to that effect. So under that backdrop, I personally feel that this time Iran is likely to become a permanent member, which is under sanction, Russia under sanction. Russia under sanction. It's going to further extend the SCO, and once Iran becomes a member, it would have, this bloc would become, of course, very strong, and the containment of China by US, that competition would further enhance. So from that angle, I personally feel that the meeting between the Russian president and Xi Jinping, it's going to be significant. Meeting with other head of states on the sidelines is going to be significant.
Looking at the current issues that have been raised because of this war, I think they are very important. They should be taken care of on ASAP basis. Now, Javed Sahab, I want your input in this discussion. Since you have been an ambassador, you're a senior diplomat, sir, you've seen the world, you exactly understand how the foreign policy works and everything. And obviously, it's not one-man show, sir. There has to be a brainstorming, and then you come up with a strategy, whether it's about the economy or it's about the foreign policy or anything for that matter, sir. National security, perhaps. Because in the recent times now, what we have observed, we always thought this is more or less about saving your borders and looking after the internal issues. But now it's about the climate change, it's about the food security, it's about your water security and so much more. Your take, sir.
Oh, that's right. In fact, let me first contribute in the ongoing discussion of our other two panelists. The institutions are our assets. And we, the people of Pakistan, have to protect that asset. These assets are built, these institutions are built in decades and in centuries. Right? And then, of course, our institutions like our military, our army, that's one of the best of the best in so many performances. And once that happens, I think bringing in such controversy, which is foreign to the constitutional framework, which is foreign to the legal framework, and never happened before. So from that standpoint, I would say that this was not the time to bring in this issue. And who would know better than Brigadier Saab, who is sitting here, that by doing so, there would be a lot of seniority and juniority and generals who would be retiring and so on. So let the framework go on. Let the structured system which should take its own course. And making it controversial, such an institution which has its reputation for the world we are not doing good to ourselves. It's like, weakening our own security guard of our houses, or our city, or our province, or our country. So that, I think, we should avoid it. Now, coming back to your point that the climate change and the way world is moving forward on foreign policy. Now, the foreign policy, I've been making these comments in so many channels that now this is a time, and particularly the suffering which we had very recently for no fault of ours, climate change, which I just quoted about the Secretary General's statement during this visit here, and we all have monitored and we all have really read and heard it. So from that standpoint, we have to really carry on with this momentum which has been created by the Secretary General of the United Nations, and that is the climate diplomacy. Now, climate diplomacy is the requirement of time. And Foreign Office, I'm sure, must be thinking about it, and I've spoken with some of my previous colleagues. They are also very seriously thinking that we should aggressively pursue the climate diplomacy and make the world know about the consequences of the others' mistakes, what we are seeing here. And we have already discussed the discussion during this show. We have already discussed that about 40 billion and the crop which has been destroyed and will not be able to sow the crop of the wheat. And in your previous segment, I mentioned that there is an Article 3 of the SCO in which the member countries like Russia could provide us the wheat, because the mitigating of the impact of such natural disaster, it is the collective responsibility of all the members. So coming back on our approach towards the foreign policy and the climate change, plus the geopolitical landscape which is taking place in and around us, I think this is the time that we should evolve upon our policy in such a way that we are able to convince the world and we are able to make that the appeal which has been made.
Sir. Javed Saab, I'm so sorry to cut you here, sir. I'm so sorry to cut you here since we are totally running out of time, and I was just told by my producer to wrap up the show. But thank you very much, sir, for your input. Brigadier Saab.